doing my Handmaid's Tale seasons 1 through 5 recap with season 2. Spoilers ahead, obviously, so if you haven't watched and you don't want to be spoiled, I guess come back later. So season 2 is really rough. A lot happens this season, and the first episode of season 2 is incredibly hard to watch. So we open up with where we left off in the first season. We see June and all the other handmaids that refuse to stone Janine. They all arrive at what I guess is Fenway Park. All the handmaids are lined up on a stage and nooses are around their necks, and they all think that they are about to get killed because they are being punished for what they didn't do to Janine. And surprise, it was all a ruse. They weren't actually going to get hung, but Lydia really wanted just to freak them all out. And it's a terrible scene because you see all these women kind of come to terms with the fact that they're about to die. Some of them are holding each other's hands. Some of them are so afraid they're like urinating themselves. It's terrible. And so all the handmaids are basically taken from that location. They're all taken back to the Red Center and they're all being punished in the rain. All the women are like holding out a rock in front of them. They're holding it out, extended arm. They're all being kind of tortured. You know, they're trying to hold this rock for as long as they can or else they'll be punished. And then all of a sudden someone comes, tells Lydia that June is pregnant. Lydia is like, oh, blessed be, June is pregnant, and she didn't share her news with us. So she takes June out of the rain and takes her back inside the Red Center. And because June is still being punished, but now she's in a different circumstance, Lydia takes her down to like the basement where we find a woman that has been chained up. She's pregnant. And Lydia basically lets June know, like, this is what could happen to you if you misbehave. You could be chained up for your entire pregnancy in this dark room and then probably killed or sent to the colonies after. Would you like that? And so June's like, okay, I'll play ball. So she brings June back to like the cafeteria and she makes her drink the soup, and then she brings all the other handmaids and lines them up. And they're all like watching June eat the soup, and then you realize that the guards are taking each handmaid to the kitchen and they're burning them on the stove. It's just really bad. And so poor June has to like sit there while this is happening, and all the other handmaids are like watching her. It's just terrible. June is later taken to the hospital. They're doing an examination, and after everyone leaves the room, she's trying to put her boots back on, and she finds a key in her boot. And so she escapes out of that room. She runs down to the bottom of the hospital, finds a truck. She comes inside the truck, and the truck takes off and takes her to a safe house. And so she says thank you so much to the driver, and he leaves her there, and we find out that Nick has arranged for her escape. So she's at this safe house. While this is happening, we get an update on what happened to Emily. Emily has been sent to the colonies. The colonies is just a terrible place where they send all these women. Terrible working conditions. They're just working until they die. Just the environmental aspects of where they're at. It's like burning their skin. It's just terrible. And so you see Emily, she's kind of acting as like the doctor there. She's administering first aid. It's just a miserable existence. And we get flashbacks of what her life used to be before the rise of Gilead. We learn that she was a college professor. She has a wife and a young son. And we see kind of flashbacks of the college. And she has a colleague who's also a gay man that is kind of taking her away from her classes, and he's warning her like things are not safe. And at this point, Emily's like, what are you talking about? I'm going to continue working. I'm going to continue teaching. They can't take that away from me. And later on, we see that her colleague has been hung in the college, and this is like a wake-up call for Emily. So she grabs her wife and her son, and they go to the airport. But unfortunately, she cannot leave because now, like, gay marriage is not recognized in the country. And so because her wife has a Canadian passport, they let her wife and their son go into Canada, but then Emily is left alone, thus leading to her capture and becoming a handmaid. This episode ends with Janine getting delivered to the colonies, and Janine is just overjoyed to see Emily, but Emily knows like, oh no, Janine's here, it's bad news, So when June was delivered to the safe house, she quickly like rips off the tag that they put in her ear to identify her, and she burns her red dress. And she's at the safe house for 2 months until someone else comes to take her to a different location. His name is Omar, and he lets her know like, hey, the safe house is no longer safe. Someone tipped someone off. We got to get you out of here. And so Omar takes her to his own house where his wife and his son live. They leave her in the house. They go to church. They say, we'll be back soon, but then they don't come back. And June gets a little nervous. And so she puts on his wife's clothes and leaves the house with the map that he gave her. And she makes her way to the airport where a plane is waiting to take her to Canada. But because nothing good can happen to June, I guess, they are captured. The plane goes down, the pilot is immediately executed, and then she is captured. She's taken to the Red Center. June is chained to that bed that the other lady was chained to, and Aunt Lydia basically gives her the choice. She says you could stay here, get chained up your entire pregnancy, and then basically probably get executed or sent to the colonies, or you could return to the Waterford house and turn into a Fred again. This episode, Lydia is very interesting. She's kind of toying with June's brain like the rest of the season. She's like, June is responsible for all these bad things, but you're Offred, and Offred is not responsible. So she's kind of like giving June the out almost to become Offred again and become like kind of a subservient person who, you know, wants to change. So basically June is taken back to the Waterford house, and they're kind of acting like she was kidnapped, which clearly she wasn't kidnapped, but they're kind of playing it off that way. But when June gets back up to her bedroom, Serena bursts in and chokes her and is obviously incredibly angry with her and is like, you've been gone for like 90 something days. We didn't know where the baby was. Like she clearly hates June. And Lydia's like not letting June have any moment alone. So like June's taking a bath, and you know, Lydia's like instructing her how to clean herself and like do all this stuff. She makes June eat whatever she needs to eat, even though it's disgusting. June does have one moment alone with Rita, where Rita like gives her the letters, and June's like, oh, someone was supposed to be in contact with you to take those letters. And Rita kind of lets her know like, it's too dangerous. You don't know what it's been like here while you've been gone. And so we learn that Serena's having a baby shower that day. So it's really tense because obviously Serena's not happy with June, and June is not happy to be back, but Lydia is there, and she's kind of acting as almost a referee between the two. She's kind of reminding Serena, like, God can forgive you for being, like, so angry with her, but, like, hey, ease up a little bit because, you know, this isn't good for the baby. But Serena is so incredibly upset, and, like, things get worse. At the baby shower, they're talking about how Serena, you know, can't wait to feel the baby kick for the first time, and June's like, well, I felt it kick last night. You know, she's just kind of toying with Serena, and it doesn't go well. At the baby shower, we see a bunch of other handmaids, and we learn how some of the other ones have gotten punished. Like, Offglen lost her tongue. They cut out her tongue because she spoke out against Janine. And so June is really feeling an immense amount of guilt, and it only gets worse when Lydia takes her to the wall, which is a place where like traitors are hung, and she sees Omar, the driver that helped her, and Lydia says like, yeah, he was killed, and you know, his wife has turned into a handmaid, and his son has been adopted by another family, and this wasn't necessarily God's plan, but this is all your doing. But it's not really your doing, it was June's doing. So become Offred, really dedicate your life to that, and you know, you have like a new chance at life or something. So June is really just beat down, and she goes back to the Waterford house and she begs for their forgiveness. And of course, Serena just hates her. And so it doesn't really matter to her, but they let June stay in the house. So because June is overwhelmed with guilt, she's just kind of given up and she's become kind of completely subdued. And Nick notices and he's really worried about her. So he approaches Serena and is like, hey, I'm really worried about June. And instead of being at all concerned with June's safety or well-being, Serena just hates June so much. So she wants to make things worse for her. So what does she do? She arranges for Nick to get married in front of June. Takes June to the ceremony where Nick marries like an incredibly young girl named Eden. She must have been like 15 or something. She's like super young and it's really gross. And she's played by a very young Sydney Sweeney. Eden has clearly been trained to become a wife her entire life, and so she's completely like dedicated to Nick. But Nick obviously has no interest in her because he loves June, and plus she's a child. You know, there's a bit of a power struggle in the house. Like several times Serena just tries to bring June down more and more and more. And she's encouraging Eden just to be as cruel as her to June. But of course Eden is a nice sweet girl. But later on, she does tell June like she's worried that Nick might be gay because he won't have sex with her. And June approaches Nick later on and is like, hey buddy, you gotta do the deed because they might report you and then you might get killed. He does, you know, consummate the marriage. But the day of the wedding ceremony, June woke up and noticed that she was bleeding a little bit, and she was trying to conceal the bleeding. But after the ceremony, she is just distraught. It's nighttime. It's raining. She walks outside and she collapses and she's covered in blood, and they take her to the hospital. Nick finds her and they take her to the hospital, and basically the doctor tells Serena the baby's fine, but you really need to work on your attitude. You need to work on the household and be kind to June because this is like, this amount of stress isn't good for anyone. And so Serena kind of tries to be kinder. She invites some of the handmaids to come over and have lunch with June. And June, out of an act of, I guess, desperation, she just asks Serena, can I please see my daughter? Can I please see Hannah? And this angers Serena so much. And she approaches Fred and she tells Fred, like, I want her out of the house. But Fred reminds her, like, hey, you're going to miss the pregnancy if we kick her out, so just deal with it. Later on, we see a scene. All the handmaids are taken to the new Red Center that they're just opening, and Fred is giving a speech. And all of a sudden, Offglen arrives. She walks inside the building. She looks at all the handmaids that are sitting outside the building, shows them that she has an explosive in her hand, and June and the rest of the handmaids start running, and the building explodes. So a bunch of commanders die, plus some handmaids. Fred, unfortunately, makes it, though. He survives, but he's in the hospital. You then see, like, a new man has been initiated into the head of the eyes, and so he starts questioning June about her disappearance, and June, doesn't give him any information. She's just like, yeah, I was taken. And so he's investigating the Waterford household, and then this angers Serena. So Serena pulls some strings and gets this guy arrested. We see some backstory on Serena. We kind of see her and her start as a conservative activist. We learned that at some point she got shot in the stomach, and that has kind of contributed to her idea that she might not be able to have children. So while Fred is in the hospital, Serena enlists June's help in order to draft a new security order for Gilead. She allows June to read. Serena's kind of trying to be sneaky and do some things under Fred's name while he's in the hospital. There's this whole story about Janine in the colonies. Janine is trying to help Emily see the light again. Janine helps facilitate a wedding between these two women that have fallen in love before one of the women dies. And I think Janine does help Emily during that time, but then later we see a car show up. The car takes several women from the colonies, people that used to be handmaids, to deliver them back to Gilead, including Emily and Janine, because so many handmaids had died during that explosion. And so Emily, unfortunately, is back. June runs into Janine, and she's so happy to see her. We find out that Janine's baby is sick and she's at the hospital, and they go and they find out that the baby really needs help from a specific doctor, and the only doctor in the area is a Martha. So Serena asks Fred to sign this order to allow her to come to the hospital and help the baby, and Fred refuses. So Serena forges his signature so that she can help the baby. Unfortunately, the doctor said there's nothing else I can do. We just got to make the baby comfortable. Naomi Putnam and Serena are kind of convinced that Janine might be the best bet to help the baby get better, and so Janine is allowed to come to the hospital, and she holds her baby, and the baby makes a miraculous recovery. Unfortunately for Serena, Fred is released from the hospital, and he finds out what she did, and to punish her, he whips her. So she's humiliated and she's hurt, and this is just the first step, and Serena kind of getting punished for some of her actions. Fred, Serena, and Nick go to Canada because Fred is giving some sort of speech to try to mend the relationship between Canada and Gilead. And we meet Mark, who is an American agent. He has words with Serena where he's kind of encouraging her to get away from Gilead, come to Canada, write a book and telling all the secrets of Gilead, kind of opposing Gilead, and Serena denies his request. But there's some people that will say that there's a little bit of sexual tension between Serena and Mark. I don't see it, but I don't know. While they're in Canada, Nick finds Luke and gives him the letters, which is kind of an awkward meeting, but then Luke takes the letters, posts them on the internet, and then Fred is told to get the hell out of Canada because obviously they don't want to associate with him. There's a lot of the terrible things in Gilead with these letters, and while they're gone, June has these false contractions in the grocery store, and so they come home, and June finds out that, June is not actually in labor, and so she's angry at June, again, for no reason, because June didn't make it up. Serena tells Fred that she wants June in a different district when she's given birth, and then June approaches Fred and is trying to ask to please be put in the district that her daughter's in, but Fred just very curtly denies her request. The next scene is just awful. It's just awful. We see Fred and Serena break into June's room, and they essay her to try to bring about labor. It's a terribly violent scene. It's just disgusting, and this is another reason why Serena is the worst in my opinion. Fred is vile, Serena is disgusting, and they are so cruel. It doesn't work. It's just incredibly disgusting and violent. We find out that Nick's wife Eden is in love with the guard because, obviously Nick has not really been paying her any attention, and she fell in love with this guard, and she kind of confronts Nick, and Nick is just really not into her at all. Later on, Fred basically arranges a meeting between June and her daughter Hannah. So Nick drives June to this location with a bunch of houses. It's kind of deserted, and so June actually gets to talk to Hannah, and at first Hannah's really timid and not giving June anything, and there's that familiarity, and June is able to hug her and tell her she loves her. It's just trying to reassure her daughter that she loves her and she's going to help her get out. There's one moment where June finally has some sort of happiness. She's with her daughter, but then they take Hannah away, and like poor June, she's just heartbroken. But then all of a sudden Nick is taken by a bunch of guards and June is left alone in this house. So Serena and Fred show up at that house and they're arguing. They're like basically blaming each other for what has occurred, and June is still hiding from them because, you know, she doesn't want to be found. They leave the house because they assume someone has taken their handmaid, and then June's water breaks and she's all alone in this house, and she's snowing. It's terrible. She like tries to break into the garage to like get the car that's in there, but like things aren't working, and so now she's alone and she has to birth her baby by herself. She's able to do it. She gives birth to her baby all up by herself, and then later she's rescued. Terrible scene. We see that Eden and the guard have been found out, and Eden and the guard that she's fallen in love with are drowned as punishment for her adultery. It's just so sad. It basically manipulates the truth, and Nick is let go because Fred's like, oh, thanks so much for saving June, even though he didn't. We see June is at the Red Center and she's like trying to breastfeed, but she's like not producing that much milk, and it's because like she hasn't been able to see her daughter. They arrange it to where she's living in the Waterford house and she's breastfeeding, and it's like really contentious situation. Eventually Serena lets her breastfeed in person and like things are getting better. Later on though, June and Serena have like this kind of argument where June is like, you know, you want to raise her biblically, but your daughter can't even read the Bible based on these rules. You know, how are you going to teach her to live biblically when she can't even read the Bible? So Serena's kind of inspired to go to the council and basically ask all these commanders to let them read, and she unfortunately reads from the Bible in front of them. And this, of course, is a big no-no, and so she has to be punished, and so they cut off her finger. We find out what's happened to Emily. Emily has been stationed at a new commander's house, and we see Emily is already ready to like kill the commander, but it turns out the commander in question is Commander Lawrence, who we are introduced to, Bradley Whitford's character. He is very kind. He's not interested at all in any of the handmaid stuff, so very soon she learns like, oh, he doesn't want to have a ceremony. He's not interested, so she doesn't have to like off him. She did hide a knife in her dress, and Aunt Lydia shows up and there's some harsh words, and then Emily attempts to murder Aunt Lydia and she falls to the ground. She stabs her, falls down the stairs, and then Commander Lawrence takes Emily elsewhere. Later we're back at the Waterford house and we see that the house nearby is on fire and there's all this commotion, and then June finds out that the Marthas are making a diversion. They're trying to get the Marthas, June, and the baby out of Gilead, and so June is trying to escape. Serena catches her, and Serena, this is the one good thing Serena does. She tells June to take Nicole to Canada to have a better life, because obviously at this point Serena has lost a finger, she's been whipped, she like realizes like how crappy it is for women in Gilead, so she actually does one good thing and lets June escape with Nicole. You see that Fred almost caught June and Nick stops him and confronts him. June is taken to where Emily is at, and so they're there together. They're about to leave to escape to Canada, and June just has a second thought and goes, you know what? Take Nicole to Canada. I have to stay for Hannah. I'm not leaving without my daughter. And so she sends Emily and the baby to Canada, and June stays, and she plans on fighting for Hannah. And that's how the season ends. I remember watching this season when it was airing, and I was so mad at June. I was like, get out! Just get out of Gilead. Maybe you can get Hannah out a different way. I don't know, because in my head I'm like, how are you gonna do that? I don't know. So like, I think a lot of other people were a little bit mad at June's decision to stay behind, but it is what it is. The season was like so dramatic. There were so many really tough moments. It's a really hard watch. Honestly, the second season I think is a harder watch than the first season. But yeah, I mean, really great show. It's a great season, but man, it is a hard watch.